Hello, Derek Bergener here. It's July 17th, 2018, and I decided to play UNH today. It gapped down on earnings, and I marked out a few of these levels on the daily, thinking there was more room for it to come down, so I looked for short opportunities. On the 1 minute chart here, you can see my trades, so if you want to pause that, see my exact entries, and there's my P&L. I was up. This is where P&L doesn't matter. I was up on this, but I sucked. I did some bad trades. So realized 105. See, the realized 105, then subtracting commissions and fees, net 71.74. So anyway, gap down, and looking at this level in the pre-market, I did not mark this on my chart in the beginning. I should have. And this is like what we are supposed to be doing, trade off of levels, risk off of levels, and I don't do it. I don't take the trade, and I don't know why. This is what I need help with. This was, from my understanding, the people that were shorting, they're covering into the open here, and then you might expect a pop, and sure enough, so I got this little white box here covering up the chart. And if I move it along here, that's the pop. See that right there, risking off of levels. Why don't I take it? I see it and I don't do it. I need to understand how, because this is what makes the difference. Because that was the high. That was the high of the morning. And getting in an entry there, risking off of this 250, 250 level right there in pre-market. Why don't I do it? I stared at it. This was the only thing I was watching. I tend to look for confirmations that it's going in a certain direction, and by then, you missed out on so much. So first candle, second candle dumped out there, popped back up under VWAP. I'm thinking, okay, well, this should be picking a direction here if it comes down under VWAP, and it another candle there, test popped up a little bit and then came down. As it's coming down, I finally entered. See that triangle right there? I finally got short. And that's sort of my MO, is like I'm waiting for some kind of confirmation that it's going in a certain direction instead of taking this trade and risking off of the level. That's like such a huge difference. So anyway, this was still a good entry. And went down, sure enough, went down, and I covered half right here. So that's good. So that's not bad. This would have been better up here, but this wasn't bad. Now here's where I began to mess up. So watch this level here that I have marked out. See this 250 right there? It came back up and tested that 250 level, and again, just take the trade. Because see, I'm looking for a place to add back in. And this is where I struggle with. That's where I should have added on that 250 level. And I didn't. And it came back and tested again. And I got short. I added 50 shares right there, which still wasn't bad because that's like my confirmation. I'm watching the bottom of this trend line here and I'm watching for this confirmation to come down, and I added. But what that did is it brought my average down to just over 250, just slightly over, and I'm like, oh man, that's no good, because if this pops back up to just over 250, my rule is I'm on my second half here. I'm on my last share, so I need to cover on break even to lock in my profits. So I cannot risk this thing going back up. Netflix was ripping, the market was ripping, and I'm like, man, this thing could turn, and possibly is this making a higher low? I don't know. So I'm on my cover all button, hotkey, and what happened is, but if I had gotten in right here on this pop, my average would have been up here, and I could have weathered this out. And what happened is it popped. It looked like it was going to go, but it didn't. And it popped up right there, and I got out. And I'm like, I cannot. The markets are screaming right now. I can't risk this thing taking off. So I guess, that's okay. But if I had added right there on that pop, right into that 20, that's a 20 EMA, I would have been fine and I would have been in. And so now, since I'm out of the trade. Now I'm looking for a new entry. And again, I'm waiting for confirmation. And what I drew mentally, I didn't draw it on the chart, but mentally I drew this trend line up under here like this, and I'm like, okay, if it's holding, oh come on, if it's holding, the EMA's here and breaks this trend line, I'll get short. And I think I was a little bit slow on the trigger right there, but I got short right there, and I covered half on the dip, and then I didn't add. I'm like, I'm not going to add, and I let it come down, and I got out right there. So now I'm out. And so now I'm looking for another. So that was fine. I was perfectly happy with that second trade, and I'm up like $180 at the time. I'm like, oh man, I should just quit. And I'm watching this. And I'm like, oh, this thing could break down some more. But it's in a channel. See this channel right here? This is not your typical flag. This isn't this pull back to the 9 and then dump. And so I'm like, oh, I got short right there on that tiny little break. And I got faked out, because see, I should have been, I think I did have this trend line drawn right here. No, see, it didn't break that trend line. That's what I was watching. And it was like, oh man, this is going to go some more. And I got faked out there, and I covered right there. And that pretty much took away half of my gains. And then I'm like, oh, well, this is going to pull back into VWAP. And then I'm going to go short again at VWAP, and there's the VWAP tag. And I got short again right there, risking off of this level right underneath here. Right, see, that's right here. That's what I was risking on, and it's at VWAP. I'm like, oh, this should come back down, and it popped up again. And I gave back the second half of my gains, and I was almost flat. So what else did I do? I recovered some. Okay, with the EMAs, with this lower high here, and making almost kind of like a mini head and shoulders, and the EMA's kind of curling down, and it's hovering around VWAP, and I'm like, oh, this thing looks like it's going to fade. And so I got short again right there, and sure enough, that worked, and I covered half, I think, right there, and I think I added half back right there because it popped up under the EMAs. And then it wasn't looking good here. And on that little pop up right there, see, I was watching, this upper trend line here. And I'm like, no, I don't trust this. Remember, the market's screaming up. And I got out right there. So, that's how I got back to this, plus 105. And then after my commissions and all that, like, 15 tickets? Like, oh my God, that's horrible. And was that my last trade? Yep. Okay, so that's it. All right, man, lots of things to improve on. Okay, thanks. Hope that was helpful to somebody. Thanks.